Brew on Bavarian Hefeweizen. And here are the ingredients that are in here. Some malt extract, wheat, some Liberty hop pellets, 2 1-ounce packages, and some yeast. Okay, one of the first steps is open yourself a home brew. And this is an English stout. Okay, before you get started, make sure that you have some Be Bright or C Bright to cleanse all your spoons and other material that you're going to be using. You want to make sure everything's extremely sanitized. You can also use bleach, very little, just enough to take and kill any bacteria. So right now we're bringing our water up to a boil. After we get this up to a boil, we're going to be stirring in our malt extract. Okay, we now have our water at a boil. We'll now take our can of malt extract and pour this in. We're now going to bring this up to a boil and we'll add our first set of hops and let that boil for 30 minutes before we add our second can of malt extract. And then we will add 1 more packet of hops and let that boil for 15 minutes. Make sure you're stirring occasionally while you're doing this so it does not stick onto the bottom. The malt extract is very sticky and can stick on the bottom and burn. As you can see, it's starting to foam a little bit. When it starts to foam a little more, we will take and turn it back and let it come up to a boil. We want this to happen before we take and put our hops in. As you can see, this is coming up to a nice little boil now. At this point, we'll be adding our Liberty hop pellets. When this comes back to a boil again, we will then set the timer for 30 minutes. As you can see, the beer making process is very simple. You just follow the instructions that are given to you, or follow the recipe that you can find online or in your books. At this point, while you're waiting, good reason to have another home brew. Now you can see the home brew working away as it boils. Leave that cover on, make sure that you don't get it so it boils over. Our beer has been boiling now for 30 minutes. We're now going to add our next can of malt extract. At this point, you're going to bring this up to a boil again. When this gets to a boil, we're going to add our hops. This time it will boil for 15 minutes. And then we'll let it cool before we add it into our carboy. Now this beer, when it's said and done, should take an alcohol level should be somewhere near 5.1 to 6%, depending on the malt extract and if I decide to add any more fermentables into it. Sometimes some people use honey, brown sugar, or regular sugar. 5.1 is not a bad alcohol level. I usually have mine a little higher, but the last time I made this I left it the way that it was, and it really was a really good tasting beer, so I think that I'll leave this alone and go with what we have right now. What I'll be doing is, after I have this in the fermenter and getting it set, I'll show different stages along the way, and I'll have a second part to this video where it's showing the finished product, the bottling, and of course the taste testing. Please feel free to leave your comments down below on what you think of the video. This is my first video on making homebrew. I have made a few other homebrews before, but this is my first one doing the video, and trying to pay attention to the video and making the beer at the same time. While we're waiting for this to come up to a boil, where I get my homebrew supplies are the Winslow Stove Shop, where he also has a variety of homebrew kits, malt extracts, and also different grains, yeast. And I also get them from Farmington Kennebec breweries, and he has everything also. He has different kits, he has different yeast, he has different grains. They'll actually grind them for you to take them home if you're going to go from the grain on, and that's a little bit of a bigger process. Okay, we've now come up to a boil, so we will be adding our second batch of hops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking this off the burner for now. We'll add our hops to it. Now you want to make sure you stir this until it dissolves. Bring it back onto the stove to get it to come up to a boil again. Okay, now that this has boiled 15 minutes, it's now ready to cool off before I put it in the carboy. And as it's cooling off, there's only one thing you can do. Have another homebrew and wait. At this point, I've started to add that in. I'd like to get that up to the 5-gallon mark. So fill the rest of that up with cold water to try to get that so it's down below 90 degrees before I pitch my yeast. At this point, we're going to take our specific gravity to find out exactly how much sugar is in this so we can figure out our alcohol level at the end. Right now, that is saying about 1.05. Now, at the end of the fermentation, we're going to take and check this out. How much of the sugar the yeast has eaten to turn into alcohol. Now our mixture has cooled down enough that we can pitch our yeast. going to wait about 10 minutes, and then we're going to give a couple stirs to get the yeast settled in so it starts our process of fermentation. As you can see, the yeast is settled a little bit. We're going to take this one and give it a couple stirs here to get that yeast moving a little bit. Get a little oxygen in there to aerate it. Now, at this point, we're going to fill the airlock. They tell you to fill it with water. Well, the problem with water is water can grow bacteria. And if any of it gets into your beer, you can spoil your beer. So I myself, I use tequila. There's no way that tequila is going to hurt it. If anything else, it'll just improve it. At this point, we have our beer ready to start fermenting. And that's the end of the brewing. One thing left to say is cheers. You can see this is working very good. This is the next morning after making this homebrew. It hasn't really started a big process of fermenting yet. Probably by tonight we should probably get a little bit more fermentation than what we have right now. It's kind of cool here in the basement. Now this other one is my blueberry wine, and that's working really good. That should probably be ready to bottle in another month or so. And the next one here is like a rhubarb wine, and that is ready to bottle at any time.